So you use some terminology here. So bucket, like what is that? Is that things I build sandcastles with, or like what is this
Something like
bucket
that, yeah.
thing? Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nader. In this video, I have a special guest again. With us here is Gavin. We are going to be doing a system design interview. This is a bit different than our normal setup for technical interviews. So as we go through this video, I'll probably explain a little bit more about how this interview works. But before we kind of get into that, I just want to give Gavin a chance to maybe introduce himself really quick. He did an intro in our technical interview where we did a bunch of coding problems. He totally crushed those. Total boss, this guy. So I'm going to try to see if he does just as well and push him just as hard in this interview. But yeah, just for everyone in the audience, Gavin, maybe you want to give a quick rundown and how you prepped for this and kind of why you want to do this interview together?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm always kind of trying to branch out, and I mean, I've seen system design interview being a big part of a lot of larger companies, things like that. So it's never something I thought to try until you had brought it up to me, and I got kind of interested because I mean, I've been doing a little bit of systems design just for the my own personal projects, of course, like throughout the process, not necessarily on a 45-minute, interview setup, but so it's going to be a little bit different, but. Yeah, just went through the interviewing IO system design course they have, and just tried to read through it as much as I could, and a lot of it was just how to present like so it's
Cool.
I'm ready to give it a try. Yeah.
So what are you expecting?
Ooh, it's hard to say. I've watched a couple of like interviews on YouTube, but I mean that's really the only experience I have with it is
Okay.
design Google or design the search engine or design this file system, something like that. So yeah.
Wow, look at this. This guy is designing Google in his spare time. Amazing. um,
Watching others.
right, right. Okay, so yeah, that's basically what we're doing. Just so everyone knows and we're all on the same page, the purpose of a system design interview really is to design, as kind of the name implies, like a technical system. So we're going to be, or in this case, Gavin is going to be drawing a whole bunch of boxes and lines and things like that and explaining to me how he would kind of approach designing a specific type of application, which I actually have on notes on the side here drawn out beforehand. Gavin has not seen these notes. He doesn't have any idea what we're building. So it's going to be totally fresh for him. And I'm really going to be pushing him to his limits here. And I have some tricks up my sleeve as well. Yeah, I think overall, it's a way for Gavin to design a system purely based on kind of the information that I'm giving him. We're not going to be writing any code together. He's just going to be drawing tools and mainly asking questions. The purpose of this is really just to get as many questions in as possible to make sure that we're communicating together. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of role playing as well so that we can make things a little bit more fun and make things a bit more story based for all of us here as well. So yeah, does that sound good to you, Gavin?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So what we have here is a kind of a tool I have that I like to do all my drawings in, and I gave Gavin a little bit of a demo beforehand as to how to actually start drawing this. So you can see that, Gavin, there's some shapes over here on the left-hand side. If you want to search for a specific like clip arty things, like really like weird pictures of phones or whatever it is, you can search for that if you need up there if you like. And then there's some other tools that'll pop up as you start dragging things around to change colors and draw arrows around the screen. I also have set up for Gavin over here a VS Code editor just to write some notes. I have both a Markdown file and a JavaScript file. Normally how this would work is if we were doing this in person, we would be doing this. This would be like the whiteboard, and we would be like drawing on a whiteboard, and I'd be sitting back, sipping my coffee while Gavin is sweating away, writing on the whiteboard over here, and I'm slinging questions at him. And he probably might have these notes written down like on the whiteboard, like side by side kind of thing. But we'll kind of go with this setup for now because that works pretty well remotely. Gavin has control of my screen, so he can actually come in here and we can share theorizing how this app is going to work. Gavin, also for you, I have Chrome open here, a bunch of Google windows open if you do need to Google
Okay.
anything for some reason, or if you just want me to Google something for you, just let me know. I don't think we'll need it, but just as an extra tool if you do need that, that's there for you. Does that all sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. Any questions before we get started?
Um, Not that I can think of.
All right. So let's do it. All right. So, moment of truth. So, we are going to be designing an app together, Gavin. I'm going to do a bit of role playing. So, just to make it a bit more fun, as I mentioned. So, what we're going to say is I have a startup. All right. And it is a dating app startup. Okay, and I just went out and busted my butt out there to raise a whole bunch of money. We had a beautiful prototype. It worked really well. It was a real hit on the market. Okay, we launched it in the App Store and websites and things like that, and people loved it. The reviews were great. People are using it all the time. And we picked up a couple investors, and they've invested in our vision to build this app out into a nice, scalable application. And now we're on a hiring spree for a bunch of engineers to make that vision happen. Okay, so we have a kind of a prototype. It's kind of working. It's getting a bit janky and slow. So we need a solution built up pretty soon, and we're kind of putting our heads together to make that work. So you've been hired as our system architect, okay, for this application. Um, and we're going to be designing kind of this system to meet that vision together, and then we're going to end up kind of coding this later on once we actually have everything fleshed out together. So you can ask kind of any questions here. Pretend we're in a meeting together and we're kind of brainstorming this together on a whiteboard, like in an office together, and we're trying to build out this application. And really, what we're building, I'll just keep it super vague to start, and I'll let you kind of take it from there. Is a video-based dating application. So if you've seen other dating applications, for example, like maybe Tinder or things like that, we're building our premise is a purely video-based version of that. So if you think of kind of like merging, I don't know, like TikTok or Instagram or whatever with like a Tinder kind of thing. So instead of photos that you'd see on something like a regular dating app or text descriptions, for example, we're going to be keeping it real with some nice videos. Does that sound good?
Okay, sounds good. You mind if I go ahead and hop over in the VS Code and write some notes on
Absolutely.
this?
Let's do it.
So, video based. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear my cat in the background.
No, it's all good.
Okay, so we have a video based dating app. We'll save that part for later. Let's see. So let's start with, I guess, sorry, just writing some stuff
That's
down
all
real
right. Take your
quick.
time. You want to maybe walk us through what you're thinking here as you're writing these?
Sure. So I was just going to kind of take down some of the requirements here that the system needs to accomplish. Functional kind of being the main like ways it needs to achieve things, what kind of data it needs to store, what the actual goal of the application is, and then our non-functional is going to be a bit more about like how do we scale this thing, how available does it need to be, the consistency, things like that.
Okay,
So,
great. I like it. Good start.
all right. So I guess if we're starting off with some questions, we said we're gonna be doing a video-based service. So I'm assuming we're gonna need users, or to keep user information. Do we already have the login and log out authentication set up?
Yeah, so for good question, fantastic question. So for the purposes of this system design, let's assume that we do have auth, but it is already sorted. We've already built out the authentication kind of flow.
Okay, and so as far as the videos, you said similar to TikTok, are we wanting them to be like a kept to a certain duration, like only 60 seconds, 30 seconds, something like that?
That's a great question. So currently, we have a limit of 5 minutes on our videos.
And are we limiting how many videos a user has per account? Like, do we have a cap on that?
That's a great question. So when they first set up their account, they're going to have a profile, and that profile is going to be video based for the most part with a bit of text. And they can store up or record and store for their quote unquote video profile up to 5 videos.
Okay, okay. So videos up to 5 minutes, store up to 5 videos per user. And so for, I guess, what are we thinking as far as the main like feed of the app? Like how are we recommending users to each other? Is there going to be some kind of like form you fill out as far as your interests or things like that, or leaning towards like certain things in the videos, like tags?
Great question. So, for now, for the purposes of this system design, to keep things a bit easier for everyone to kind of grasp, let's assume that that part is also already sorted out. So we already have a matching algorithm already built, very similar to the authentication.
Just keep these up top since we already have them done. Okay. And let's see. So the algorithm's already set up to match users. Let's see. I guess what starting off right now that we're out of the initial stage with the forgetting the word right now, the basically the original version of the app.
The prototype.
Prototype, thank you. S- how many users currently do we have, and how many are roughly are we expecting just in the a rough range?
Fantastic question. So currently, we have a few thousand users, but the more important thing is that I've promised our investors and hard sold them that we are building a system that is going to support 1 million daily average users. And that's the system that we're building together right now.
Okay. And are we worried about any regions over any others? Like, are we leaning more towards English-speaking countries, or are we trying to go globally?
That's
How far are
a
you trying to reach at the moment?
That's a really good question, actually. Let's keep things simple for now. And although we do want to expand, our current prototype, the prototype's user base currently is North America. But we would like to expand globally. But for the purposes of this system design, unless I mention it otherwise, let's just assume that it's geographically kind of already quite concentrated in North America. If we have time later on, we'll scale that out and we'll bring that point up.
Okay, sounds good. So, being that we're trying to, I guess, how for our user base, how often, I guess, are they on the app? Like for our power users, let's say, like what's the how often are they like scrolling through reading? Like,
Great question. So there's another kind of question or answer in there. I'm trying to think if I should tell you right now. I need to think about this for a second. I don't want to give too much
yeah,
away.
take your time.
You know what? I'll give it away. I think it's totally fine. So the users are able to view the other users and try to match with them, and they're going to do that by viewing their videos. But also another way to do that is each profile is going to have a feed. Okay,
Okay.
and we have our users currently making, and these are all video-based feeds. Just the purpose of the app, we're sticking with that theme. 4 posts per day on average per user. And when it comes to users viewing other profiles and scrolling through their videos,
It was a day, correct?
correct, yes. They view other profiles and view their videos about like 100 per day. We can build it out for that. Now, you can imagine they don't view the whole video or all of the videos all the time, so it's pretty quick scrolling is what we've noticed.
Scrolling. So you mean like usually they'll watch like 10, 20 seconds. If they don't like what they see, they'll move on very quickly.
Yeah,
Okay.
you got to make good first impressions. Um, I'm just gonna scroll this down a little bit, Gavin, so that the
Sure.
recording gets our faces in as well there, since this
Right.
is the area right here for the box. Perfect. Or you can do that. Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, let's see. So in the feed, whenever you said we already have a matching system, is that like as in like whenever the user clicks like I want to match, it
Yes.
automatically links up? Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So it's mainly the feed right now and the actual posting and sharing of the videos that we're concerned with right here. Okay. Inside of this feed, are we wanting any other kind of like functionality, like being able to have like a friends list or anything like that, or any kind of like previous connections?
Great question. So for the purposes of this system design, let's not worry about that. We can worry about that in future iterations. I think there's enough to deal with even there. But yes, that is a
Right,
consideration we'll need to make. Things like likes and friends lists and chatting and whatnot are future features we're going to be adding.
right. And so I'm assuming we want this at the moment. It seems like what you're looking for is something that's firstly highly available. Um, just because we want to be able to always have at least users be able to at least scroll their feed,
Mhm.
even if, maybe they're offline for a minute or so, they might still have some of that cached or something. So,
Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable. Maybe we can potentially get away with that. We'll see. We'll make some trade offs here depending on what you feel works well for the system. We have had complaints of our even our prototype not working people and that or for people and that frustrates them a lot. So we would ideally like to have something that doesn't crash or is available most of the time.
right, right. Okay, sounds good. And let's see. I guess is there any main feature that that I'm looking for, I guess, that I'm missing here? Is there something that you'd like to see, I guess, that I'm currently not seeing or haven't mentioned?
I think this is a good starting point. So if you want, unless you have a few more just general questions about how the app works, that might help out. You
Yeah.
can you can feel free to start drawing some things out if you like.
Okay. I'm just kind of trying to think of as far as like the video feed itself, if you said the recommendation is already set up as well, so okay, so the feed, like we just have to pull in and be able to have that available for users. And
Yeah,
what
so
kind
so
of,
think of it in
go
the
ahead.
context of sorry to cut you off. Think of
No,
it in
no,
the
you're fine.
context of scrolling through the profiles to see their feed. So I'm going to scroll to, for example, your profile. You're going to have up to 5 videos up top, and it's going to say your name and maybe some small information about you, but it's primarily video focused. And then below that's going to be your quote unquote feed, and that's all video based as we just saw. And then
Ah, I
I can
see.
kind of scroll up and down through that, and then I can go to the next person if I'm not interested, or say that I want to match.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's not so much like a news feed on like your homepage where it's
Correct.
showing you all these people, it's just on their actual user profile.
That's right.
And I guess as far as like how are we showing them users profiles to to start looking through those videos in the first place. So we just
Yeah, so as soon as you hop in the app, you'll start being recommended people to match with, and you kind of just start swiping through them. And then you can also
gotcha.
have your own personal profile that you can manage that other people will match with you, and you can have your own feed.
Right. Okay.
So currently, we don't have. I think where your question was going, like an algorithmically generated like TikTok or Instagram style,
Right.
feed.
Right. Okay. Let's see. So, do you want me to jump into, I guess, any of the kind of ballpark estimates on the
Let's start maybe doing some drawing, and then I'll prod you for some numbers as we start seeing some things out there. If you're okay with that, unless you want to feel free to ask a couple of questions regarding some of the technicalities of any of these, whichever you prefer.
the only other thing I was going to ask is maybe go into a bit more on like what kind of data we'll need to store for the
Hmm.
videos themselves,
Okay.
and to correlate that to users.
Beautiful question. That's a fantastic question. So, this is where I'm going to make your life very difficult. And yeah, this is really the crux of the app, because our entire app and kind of the success of our app actually, right, in the market, it really depends on how hard we nail video, right? Like if you think like our competitors out there, I would actually consider, for example, like Netflix and apps like that. They do a fantastic job at being able to deliver video content to people all across the world on various types of devices on various types of bandwidth. And I think that that's a consideration that I pitched in our funding rounds. And I said that we have a really nice way to be able to decide what level of quality and like take account of people's bandwidth and device limitations when serving that content.
Gotcha. So, and I'm assuming we want to like we'll have an auto set to whatever their device is typically pulling,
So
and then they can adjust higher if they want
we'll
to.
need to manually build this system. We're doing this all in house.
Okay,
So if it is auto, yes, but we'll be needing to build that ourselves.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll need to. I guess so. What generally what you're talking about is like the 1080p, 1480p, like being able to adjust the
Correct.
quality of their video and okay, gotcha. Interesting. And
It is
is
interesting. It's a great app. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't
yeah,
wait to build it.
yeah, it sounds awesome. Let's I'm just thinking as far as how to like I guess that's more in the weeds than it necessarily might need to get for this, but how exactly we're checking with the device, like as far as like testing the bandwidth that they're currently using or their device capacity for things like that.
Good question. So, for the purposes of this design, let's assume that we already have a method and way to detect that. We just need to be able to serve the adequate uh, content based on that detection. So, we need to build out the way to actually have that different qualities, for example. But we can assume that like detecting which quality is needed, that's already been solved.
Okay, gotcha. Interesting. So when it comes to actually being able to adjust the file, is it more so having, I guess, different versions of the video that we can serve
Yes,
based on what the device return or what
that
the,
that seems to make sense to me.
okay, so we'll have to save various qualities. Or yeah, various qualities. Sorry, it's a little bit like laggy on my end, so I'm like
No
half
problem.
behind, half ahead. So same video. So how many different video qualities are we looking to support? Like, are we trying to go up to all the way to 4K?
Great question. So we want to support primarily smartphones. So those are quite high, but we've noticed that we want to at least support 1080, 1080p, 720p, um, 480p.
Okay. So then we'll need 3 copies of every video that we generate. Do we already have a way of when a user posts a video that we can change that video into all three before sending it off to our data storage, or
We
do we
do
need to build
not.
that as well?
Currently, our prototype just uses the raw video captured by the user.
Raw video, okay. Um, but we do already have a way of detecting. Well, we have a way of detecting capacity on a user's device. Do we have a way of just checking a video we get posted currently?
Could you clarify what you mean?
So if a user posts a video at 720p, we
Mm-hmm.
would need to save that copy as well as the 1080 and the 480p copy.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Whereas if a user posts the 1080, we would need the 7. So we need to be able to detect the one they post
I
as
see.
well as convert into the two they don't.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, I guess there's kind of two questions in there. So, one is if they give us, for example, a 720, then we wouldn't actually. Let's assume that we have an upscaler as well, so we can actually upscale it to 1080 if we need. So we have ways to generate all of these, regardless of what they give us. Even if they give us 480, let's assume we have some fancy thing that
Okay.
AI upscaler or something that allows us to upscale to 1080. Maybe that's not a good idea, but that's what we have for now. But we do have a way to detect the dimensions of the video they give us, and let's just assume for now that it's going to be at least one of these three.
Okay.
Or actually,
Gotcha.
sorry, I take that back. We're going to get a raw video, which is what we currently have. And the issue with our current app is that they're of all different dimensions and all different like qualities and sizes and bandwidth constraints. So some users right now are uploading 4K, some are uploading 360, and we just serve those raw right now, which is kind of one of our complaints, and we need to fix it.
Yeah.
So we want to limit it to be these three specific qualities, and the one that we're getting from the user on their first upload for each of these video uploads, whether it's the feed or the profile, is going to be a raw video that needs to be converted.
Okay. That makes
Does
sense
that
to me.
clarify the
So
question?
I think so, yeah. So basically, when a user posts a video, it's going to have to be one of these three above. Where's that? So, and right now, we currently have in our database or our whatever we're using to persist our videos, um, four like 4K ones, some 360, like you said.
Yep.
And do we need to also go through and restructure the videos that we already have, or do we have to kind of continue to serve those raw and then moving forward restrict it?
Let's keep it simple for now, and let's just deal with whatever is coming up in the future, and whatever is
Okay.
past, we might just redo at some other point in the future with a different method.
Okay. And you said we can assume we have. Okay. Um, how is this looking so far? Does it look like we've kind of touched most of the key things you were looking for? I guess is
Absolutely.
it
I mean, I think it's a really, really great start. I'm going to be pressing you on a few things in here as we start drawing things out to get a bit more out of you. But I think
sure.
this is great.
Okay. So
Do you feel you have enough to start kind of modeling this out?
I think so. I mean, obviously, I might have some more questions
Mm-hmm.
as we kind of go
Of
through or hit
course.
any roadblocks, but I think this is enough to kind of start working off of.
Beautiful.
So yeah,
Let's do it.
right. And it was this one, right? The draw
Correct.
IO. So I guess starting off, let's kind of look at. I'll just do a guess a box. Nope, I had it earlier. Oh well.
I think you can, if you just click, you should click on the white space. You should be able to create different shapes. Is that not letting you do that? Or double
No, it was
click
doing it
maybe?
for me.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. I can just do text. So delete that again. Sorry.
It's okay.
And there we go.
Nice. Oh,
Keeps shifting on me. Sorry.
that's okay. No problem. I'll move it back later. Don't worry too much about it.
So for, I guess, the videos we're saving, we know we need all three versions
Mm-hmm.
for the quality. So we'll need, I'm assuming we're using some kind of user ID or you for the our users
I think
in the
that's a fair
database.
assumption.
Okay. So each video would probably need a user ID. And we need all three qualities. So we need a 480. We'll say low, medium, high.
That sounds good.
Okay. Now, are we wanting to save anything else? Like, are people able to like the videos, add any kind of reactions, comments, things like that?
So we'd like to support that in the future, but for now, let's just assume that we can not worry about it. We can probably say that the video should at least have like maybe some text or metadata associated with it behind the scenes. So it might have things like an upload date and time or like a title, for example. I want to avoid things like descriptions. So probably just only something as simple as a title and some of the other metadata that would come with an upload.
Is that looking about right so
Looks
far?
good to me.
Okay, so move this out of the way. Are we, hmm, I guess the question is, how are you currently storing your videos? Is this in a relational database? Are we doing this in some kind of like bucket, like S3 or
I would like you to design a brand new system for us,
brand
whichever
new
you
system?
think works well, because we're currently having some issues with our current system.
Gotcha. Okay, so I guess starting off, we know we're gonna need to be able to save our videos for the feed.
Yep,
So we'll go ahead and throw in our database here.
sounds good.
DB for now. We may need to, split it up later or see how we want to, if we want to separate the videos from our users or if we want to keep
I,
it all in the same
I
place.
like it.
We'll, kind of
Start
go through
simple, and we'll
this.
go from there.
Um, I guess I'm hesitant to try and just start throwing a bunch of, shapes up here and start drawing things out. So I mean, I think in general, I have, a decent understanding of the app you're going for here. I'm
Okay.
just curious, like, as far as trying to get to the million users, what kind of changes would be needed? But at the moment, it's hard to say without kind of throwing up a very like simple version to look at
Yeah,
first,
so
if that makes sense.
I'd like you to just build the entire architecture as best as you can. So I'll help you out a little bit. I'll just keep it simple. Let's just say, for example, maybe I have like a user here from a phone. Maybe there's there's a couple of them here. Maybe there's one from a computer. It doesn't really matter, right? So these are our users over here, and they are going to be and there's going to be 1 million daily active versions of these ones,
Right.
and they are going to be slamming our application, which in this case is going to be talking to this database as you have right here. And for now, we can just start with this one database. So as best as you can, let's see, like kind of what is the stuff that we need to think about in here, so that the users can kind of go through that and have everything eventually end up here and then back again. That's kind of our
Right.
goal. Does that help a little bit?
I think so, yeah. I mean, so the main thing is we're going to need some kind of server that's
Hmm.
acting as the intermediary between our front end and our database.
Correct.
So I'll just go ahead and throw out a, let's make it a diamond. Why not? And I'll just write servers for now
That's totally fine.
because we can assume there may be more than one.
Okay.
Depending on if we're going for 1 million users, there's most likely going to be more than one.
Okay.
Just
Can
because.
I ask what makes you say that?
Sure. So I mean, it's just a matter of the the traffic overall would all on one server. That's a lot of requests and responses having to come in through one system.
Hmm.
It will get backed up,
Okay.
and users will experience, latency, possible crashes, like,
Okay.
up to our whole system going down.
Okay. Cool.
Um,
Um, that sounds good.
so yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I like it. That makes sense. I'll
Okay,
just help you out here. I'll just make a couple of these just so that we can kind
sure.
of uh, can see that kind of like there's several of these, and then I'll just group them together, uh, just kind of like that.
Sounds
If that
good.
helps, and I'll just do a kind of I'll just group these. So that's our set of servers there. So there's multiple of them, just so it's a bit more obvious to
Right.
those watching and to ourselves.
And so, with one thing that happens with having multiple servers is we'll have to be able to figure out a way for our clients to figure out which server they need to connect to.
Correct. Correct.
Currently, are you using any kind of like stateful server to where clients are like talking to the same server every time, or is it
Ooh, that's a really great question. So whatever you think is easiest for this design, we can redo it. And our auth framework that we developed is pretty flexible and supports many styles of authentication. I'm just going to redo this to make it a little bit bigger here, just so everyone can kind
sure?
of see. Just I'll go with size 36, just so it's a bit more clear. Um, and there we go. Sorry, go ahead, Gavin.
So I guess in that case, I would assume probably with having multiple servers, I mean, you can still do it and have it balanced that way to where the same user is going to the same server every time, but there is potential for error. Say that server's down, then that user will not be able to get access to their data because it only exists in that one place,
Okay.
or at least that session only exists in that one place.
Okay.
So I personally think it'd probably be best to just keep our servers is more like a REST API standard, keep our
Okay.
everything kind of separate to where no matter whether it's our mobile app, our desktop app, tablet, what have you, our clients will be able to connect and get the same consistent data from our database.
I
So,
like the idea of that. That sounds great.
okay, so I guess one thing we'll definitely need is some kind of load balancer in order to actually deliver our clients to the right place.
Okay.
Uh, Currently, I would assume the even though we're in the North American region only at the moment, we'd still probably want to have some sort of regional or even like state or local to be able to kind of keep track of for one for instance you don't want to be matching users across the country necessarily if that makes sense. So
I think so. Yeah, I guess there's like long distance relationships and stuff like that,
I
but
mean it can work,
we
but
could
yeah.
work absolutely. But let's keep things simple for now, and we'll just like assume that things are kind of relatively geographically like co-located together,
Okay,
just for the
sure.
purpose of this design. So can you maybe
Okay.
explain to us and even maybe the audience watching if they've ever seen this before, like what is this and kind of what's your rationale behind putting this load balancer thing in here?
Sure. So there's a couple things this actually achieves for us. If you don't mind, me draw some arrows real
Sure.
quick. Essentially, and actually, we should probably be doing this the other way. So I'm gonna backspace that and go from the tablets to the load balancer. So our load balancer is actually going to act as our public-facing IP
Okay.
that our clients will connect to send and receive data from us. Which means that all of our servers we can keep on a private IP for one, which lowers the surface area of attack for security reasons
Okay.
by keeping these off of, public domains essentially. And we can use our load balancer essentially with, I mean, there's a few different methods we can do. We could do simple like round robin where we just every time someone connects, we send them to the next server and then the next server and then the next server to forever many we have. Or we could do something a little bit more specific, like the regional like location thing, and send users to the same servers based on where they are geolocation wise.
Okay.
But essentially, it kind of acts as a a front-facing router to our servers.
Cool.
Um,
So like if we
yeah,
get a whole bunch of requests in and we need to add more servers, we can probably just go ahead and add more back here, and we don't really have to worry too much about this this load balancer going out of whack. We can kind of just point it to an extra one over here so that everyone is still just talking to the same load balancer, and we can worry about this stuff internally, right?
correct. I mean, you would have to go in and if you add any servers, you would need to, let the load balancer
Mm,
know about them so that it could start routing to them as well.
right.
But yeah, it would be much simpler than having to go through and make sure that your clients are all connected to the same IP. And
Makes sense.
yeah,
I like it.
so
Cool. Yeah, beautiful. So far, so good.
all right. And so our load balancer is going to talk to, let's again, there we go. Talk to our servers. And now, as far as our database goes, for a million users, I'm assuming we're not going to want to vertically scale this forever. It gets quite expensive, of course, and computation only has so much capacity at the current time. So,
All right. So, also just for the audience, Gavin, I love that you brought this up. Do you mind maybe just going into a little bit more depth on what you mean? Not too deep, but just like you said the words vertically scaling and like what is that, and maybe
sure.
what's like the alternative to that?
So, vertical scaling is essentially adding more computational power, more RAM, more CPU, just giving your whatever computer or server is running your application, just giving it more power to upscale,
Okay.
as opposed to horizontal scaling,
Okay.
which is essentially splitting things up and having multiple different. servers or computers running, the same version of your application, but being usually something with like a load balancer or some kind of pathing to ensure everybody's getting to the right place.
Okay. Okay. So basically, I guess like visually, like a vertical scale. Sorry to mess up your database. Would be doing this.
Yeah, no, take your thing. Yeah, exactly, exactly,
And then if we were to horizontal scale instead, I guess you're saying we would just have like copies of these or a whole bunch of them or something like that, and we would decide which one to go
exactly.
to. Okay. So that's cool. Yeah. So you know what? To start the design off, let's just start with vertical scaling. And I the reason I say that is let me ask you this question: what do we need to store in our database?
Currently, we need to store our users,
Hmm.
their video feed, uh,
So hold on. So when you say video feed, what do you mean? Store their video feed.
so a user's videos that they upload for their own feed.
Okay. And are we
Um,
storing the actual like videos themselves, like all the copies of the videos in the database?
I'm assuming we would have them stored somewhere else
Okay.
and have URLs or
Okay.
have some kind of way of accessing them from that storage location.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit, just so everyone watching as well kind of is on the same page?
Sure. So with relational databases, video files are can get quite large,
Hmm.
especially whenever you're talking about when right now we're only going up to 1080, but if you go up to 4K, 8K, it gets
Right.
extremely massive. Um, so essentially, storing all of those in a database, not only that, but storing three copies could get quite expensive.
Right.
So instead, we could just store them in some kind of bucket and then save a path to it, essentially with inside our database. So whenever we get that path back, we can either load it from like something like a CDN or directly from another source. Like,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll poke at you a little bit here. So you use some terminology here. So bucket, like what is that? Is that things I build sandcastles with, or like what is this
Something like
bucket
that, yeah.
thing?
No, just generally like a blank storage system that we can store either just text files, video files, basically just a large container that's not so much built like a database where you have all these different ways of querying and all these underlying, computation inside of it. It's more
Right.
so just raw storage
Okay.
that we can access
Okay,
quickly.
great. I like that idea. I think that makes sense. So you're basically saying that we're gonna have like some other thing that there's this
Correct.
sandcastle bucket thing, and then this thing is just gonna to talk to that to get that data for the videos or for the high capacity things, and then the other smaller things like you said, like the user ID and things like that, might just be stored here. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
cool.
And here, I can go ahead and draw that out real quick. I'll just put a little, yeah, that'll work.
Now we're getting to some cloud computing here. I love it.
Just call this our storage. Oops.
Sorry, that was a bad joke.
And so, yes, our database would talk to, well, technically, our database would return the the URL for the storage bucket, and then our servers would reach out and pull from our bucket over here. If it'll attach correctly, let's see.
There's probably some little nodes that you can attach it to, but that's good enough. You can also move it around. Okay, so can you, as you're adjusting that, maybe I can fix that for you as you can maybe
Sure.
talk
Yep.
through it. So what was your intention behind this this kind of like storage bucket being separate like this, like in the sense of like why did you hesitate making the database talk to this storage bucket? Why did you make the storage bucket talk to the server instead?
So, well, with our URLs being stored in the database, we would have to be able to pull them out first before we can actually go fetch from our CDN or from our cloud storage the actual videos we need.
Hmm.
So, first we would talk to our database, get our URLs based on the format that the user's device can work with,
Okay.
and we then fetch from that storage bucket, pull
Okay.
the video down, and display it in the feed.
I like it. Very nice. Okay. So how is this information getting back from the storage bucket? Is it going through the server? Is it being stored directly, or is any of those fancy acronyms that you use that we're using? How is that coming through?
I'm sorry, could you go through that
Yeah.
one more time for
So
me?
let's say I have like HTTP colon slash slash
Hmm.
like a video happy over here. Like that's my happy
Sure,
dating video for my user ID. How is this gonna get over here to our client?
sure. So
Like what path does it take?
currently it's going to go back to our servers. Where's the one? This one does not want to give me arrows. There it is. Maybe? Nope.
There you go.
There we go. So it's then going to end up going back to our servers after it gets requested,
Okay.
and from there our servers will feed back through the load balancer are what the request was, and that load balancer will then pass that request through to the user.
Okay. That makes sense. I think that makes sense. Okay. That seems to check out pretty well. I like that system. Pretty good. So I guess we came on this little aside as a result of talking about the database and what was stored in there. So we kind of solved that this part here, the videos that you mentioned, like that's going to be up here. So the rest of these, like the user ID or any of the user information, where is that
Hmm.
stored?
That's all going to be kept in our database,
Okay.
and these low, medium, and high, I could just go ahead and put right here. Are we? I'll just put integer for now. We could be
Okay.
using
Sure.
like
Sure.
UUID or something like that,
Sure.
but
That's totally fine.
and this will be a URL. Of course, all the URLs would be strings,
Okay. And those
but
are
I'm
the
just kind
ones
of
that are
putting
being stored in that storage bucket, kind of like that string I have right above it, right there,
correct,
right? Okay.
correct. Um, and I'm just putting URL for now just to make it a little bit more clear,
That's totally fine.
so um, so our title will be most likely some kind of string,
Okay.
and we'll have some kind of timestamp
Okay.
for our metadata.
I like it.
Sound
Good.
about right?
That sounds good to me. And then so pretty much those the only thing that's really stored is in the storage bucket, as you mentioned, is the actual like video file, right? Like the file
Correct.
itself, and then we're just getting the URLs which are being stored over here in the database, and that's pointing to that bucket. And everything else in here
Exactly.
is also just being stored in the database, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I like that. That's pretty cool. Let's maybe flip back really quick to VS Code. So I'll switch back here.
Sure.
Let's take a look at how far we've come here. So we kind of have a bit of this kind of fleshed out here. It's pretty nice actually. So we could probably go into a bit more detail as to onto some of these to make sure that we have different tables set up and like how do you access those things.
Sure.
Maybe we can do that towards the end there. I do want to throw a little bit of wrench in your plans though. But before I do
Yeah.
the wrench, I'm gonna just ask you to kind of explain like what was your rationale behind this right here. You see, every time I say I'm gonna throw a wrench, he's gonna take a sip of his drink
Yeah.
there because he's like sweating it out. I love it.
That's right.
But this highly available, like that's
Hmm.
pretty specific terminology you're using there. What was kind of going through your mind when you were saying this?
Well, at the beginning, you were saying a lot of the users were experienced crashes and a lot of downtime with the app,
Hmm.
and with being able to like only post, I think it was 5 videos, 4 videos a day, or you average of 4 videos a day. So it's not like users are going to be posting more than they would be reading. It's going to be mostly looking through other people's apps, trying to or other people's profiles, trying to find matches, essentially.
Right.
And so that kind of leads me to the assumption that we want users to almost always, like 99% of the time, be able to open up our app and know it's going to work, and then they can get the feed they actually were looking for.
Okay.
So,
Cool. Yeah, that's good. So, for those of you listening as well, and I'm not sure, Gavin, if you had a chance to look at this, but there's something called the CAP theorem.
yeah.
Theorem. I can't spell theorem. Um, I don't know why my brain is farting, but it's called the CAP theorem. And if you Google it, it'll autocorrect you, so you don't spell terribly like me. But there's this is probably a pretty central part of system design. It's do you know what these ones stand for, Gavin?
I believe so. It's so the A is availability.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say P is partitioning,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to remember C right now, but it's escaping me.
I think
It's
it's
been a second.
consistency. Is it consistency?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
All right. So.
And the main, I guess, theory behind it is usually it's only really possible to achieve two out of the three at any
Mm-hmm.
given time.
Mm-hmm.
So typically you want to focus on either the, availability and being able to partition, or you want to be able to have it, one of the two of the three essentially.
Right. Right. So like things like this, right? Like availability
Right,
partition or consistency availability, that kind of stuff, right?
right,
So yeah, we won't go too deep into this. I would say that like in more if this was like a more in-depth like kind of senior level interview, we'd probably go through like how do you set these up, so like what are some of the things we need, other systems we need, like event queues or message queues and
right,
things like that to actually get some of these to work, and what happens when one goes down, like is the other one's going to still work, and things like that. So for those listening as well, for you, Gavin, I'm sure you kind of looked into this a bit, but this is actually like the base of what we need. This would actually probably be split out into a whole bunch of different systems internally
right,
that would be talking to each other and talking to the database and communicating to figure out how to make this entire thing kind of work in a nice orchestra. So
right.
for now, I'd like to leave it at this. We might have a chance to go into it, but I do want to throw my little wrench at you if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so um, I mentioned that we want to support these main video sizing kind of formats, right? 1080p, 720p, and 480p. Um, I guess my question to you, Gavin, is well, first of all, do you like math?
Uh, I wouldn't go that far.
Good,
I
good.
mean, yeah, I
Do you hate math?
I don't hate math. Like I
Okay,
wish I was better at it.
fair
I
enough.
haven't had enough practice with it recently, especially.
Fair enough. Well, let's put it to the test a little bit. Now, I know most people get terrified when they think of math, but I'll walk you through this, and let's see how far you can go, because I want to push the kind of first principles thinking on this as much as we can. So, if I was to ask you, Gavin, um, how much space is our system going to require? And you can do this like per day, per month, per year, whatever is easiest for you. Um, if we were to just think of 1080p videos, like just stick with that for now, just
Okay.
to keep it at one sizing, 1080p videos, given the kind of constraints and numbers that we talked about up here earlier with the users that we're going to be having, the amount of videos per profile, etc., and let's just assume they're all 1080p. Approximately, how would you even begin to start calculating how much storage space we would need?
Sure. So, I mean, firstly, you would want to look at what your current and what your goal user base would be.
Okay.
And we kind of pulled out that we have an average of 4 videos being uploaded a day per user. So we could kind of start there,
Okay.
and work with, as well as like only 5 videos being stored on a profile at a time.
Okay.
So we know we have that cap there. I would say if we multiply the number of users we have for our overall application by the
Let's do it. Feel
average,
free to write down some numbers here
yeah,
if you like.
sure. So we said currently we have a couple thousand, right? Um,
Yeah.
do you want to start with the 1 million, or
Let's
you
go
want
with the
to?
1 million,
Okay.
because I want to figure out how much I need to pay to buy a bunch of hard drives.
So we're gonna go with times 4 video uploads a day.
Okay.
So that's giving us 4 million videos a day.
Okay.
And we'll need to multiply that by our maximum file size for a video. So we'll assume just take the higher end that it's going to be a 5-minute video every time.
I like it. Let's do it.
So
Worst case scenario.
and unfortunately, I don't have a rough ballpark on what a 1080p like video size or
I'm gonna skewer you. Yeah, are you ready?
okay,
All right,
yeah,
let's calculate it together right now from scratch.
okay.
Okay, how do we do that?
Hmm. I'm assuming we would need to know what a base like video file for like 1 minute or in a
Let's
given period of time would be.
let's think from first principles. So like let's just go to the very basics. What is 1080p? Like what's the resolution for that? Like if we were to write it out. So I'll help you out here. I'll just say it's 1980 by
Mhm.
1080, right?
Right.
So what when you look at this number here, what am I referring to when I'm using these
We're,
numbers?
so the number of pixels across and height and width
Beautiful,
of the screen.
excellent, perfect answer. So let's assume. Well, I guess here's my next question before we do any assuming. What really is a video at the end of the day?
I guess it's a series of images played in, a loop, or not necessarily a loop, but
Yeah,
played over a duration.
correct. And we use usually something like frames or something like that, right?
Right.
And that would so if I said like frames, like what would that refer to in the context of a video?
I guess how many images we're showing per second.
Per second. Beautiful.
Yeah,
Okay. So here's my proposition for you. Let's start from scratch. Can
sure.
you tell me how big approximately an image is going to be that's 1080p?
So I'm assuming we would. You mind if I pull out the calculator on the
Go for
side?
it. Just talk through the numbers that you're trying to calculate, and I'll write them down here as well.
Sure. So firstly, I'm going to multiply the height and the width of the pixels to get the
Great.
overall area of pixels
Okay.
for the screen. It's 1080, which gives us roughly 2,200,000, or about
Sure.
200,
Let's just say 2 million
2,250.
for now. Let's
Sure.
just go with that. All right.
So roughly 2 million pixels. And are we, what's our, I guess, refresh rate look like? Are we doing about 60 frames per second?
Let's just
Or,
stick with an image for a second.
sure.
Even beyond this idea of 2 million pixels, what is a pixel?
Uh, I mean, a pixel is a very small, like most of the time, like LED, I guess now, but usually red, green, and blue, small,
Yeah,
very, very small little piece of light, I guess, that's either off or on, and based on how much light's protruding through it, will change the color and
great. And
things like that.
so
So,
each of those can be kind of manipulated a little bit
right,
to different degrees. Do you happen to know the kind of varying
250,
numbers? Yeah,
256,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. So we'll say like 256 by 256 by 256. So when we're saying this, what is this? Is this like what units are these?
Those would be bits, I believe.
Bits,
250,
correct.
yeah.
Yeah. So so in bytes, this would be how much?
Uh, divide by 8, right? 56. 32
Yeah. So
bytes.
32 by 32 by 32. Is that right? Wait.
8 bits per byte.
8 bits per byte. I think that's
So,
right. Is that right? Um, yeah, I think that's right. That's good. So yeah. So let's just say that we need. That seems high. I think we only need 8 bytes. Isn't it 8? Wait, no. I think my mind is blowing a little bit. You see, the math is really hard. It doesn't really matter
I
what the
agree.
number is. It doesn't really matter what the numbers are. So usually, just for everyone watching and for you, Gavin, whenever you see numbers for a pixel, usually we're thinking of red, green, and blue values. So just so we can zoom out a bit, and those numbers usually go from 0 to 255. Right? So 0 means usually like an absence of that color, and then 255 would mean like the maximum saturation of that color. And this is a pretty, I think you said like 8 bits or eight
8 bits
bytes.
for a byte.
Yeah, color value spectrum. There's other higher value spectrums that you can do. Like instead of going to 255, maybe you can go up a higher number, and you can represent more intermediate color values. But we're basically seeing like this for our 3 color values, and this is per pixel. Right?
Right.
Every single pixel is going to have 3 possible values, and each of those values is going to be a number between 0 and 255. So we need to store a number between 0 and 255. So we need, I think it's 8 bytes for that. My gosh, my brain is like totally brain farting. 8 times 8, 64 times 4. 32. You know what? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what the number is. Let's just go with this number, for example.
Okay.
So let's just say that what we ended up calculating is, let's just say, like to keep this number relatively simple, let's just do like 10 by 10 by 10.
Okay.
Okay. And this is, what did we say? We said this is bytes, right?
Right.
So this is 30 bytes. Okay. And let's just round it up. Let's just say 100 bytes. Just so we're not dealing with like odd numbers. So
Right.
if each of these pixels, so we said that this is 2 million
Right.
pixels. Each of these pixels, each pixel is 100 bytes. Then how many bytes is the entire image?
About 2 billion, right?
Yeah, so it's 2 million times 100. Which is 200 million, I think. So
Oh yeah.
200 million. Yeah. 200 million bytes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is, I guess, just so everyone here is on the same page, as well as you, Gavin, if we were to make this into, instead of bytes, like we normally think of things in megabytes or gigabytes, like 2 million bytes, how many like megabytes or gigabytes approximately is that? You can do some funky rounding here if we like.
Yeah, I had that. Let's see. So it's 1024 for everyone. We'll say roughly 1,000. So
Right. So divided by
uh
1,000
right,
will
which
give
would
us what kind of bytes?
two that would give us megabytes. No, sorry. 2 million. That's gig.
So if this is
That's mega.
bytes, this is
That'd be
bytes, sorry,
kilobytes next. Yeah.
kilobytes,
Yeah.
right? And then if we, so that would give us, that would be kilobytes. And then if we divided by, let's just do another 1,000, we would get
That would be our bytes.
our bytes, megabytes.
Because we started at megabytes, then we
I
went.
think we started at regular bytes.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay,
we're
so we're
going up
going.
just to
Okay.
make it a bit easier.
Okay, so yeah, then it would be kilobytes, then megabytes,
Then finally we'd end
Giga-
up at gigabytes, right? Exactly.
gigabytes or tera. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So the reason I'm doing this is just to there's a few folds for this, and not that these numbers are meaningful really by any degree. I think like being in the right ballpark is helpful, but also being able to show that you can kind of do these calculations on the fly, like napkin kind of math, is super important. Even if this is totally wrong. Right? It doesn't really matter what the number is. Like you saw, we totally fudged the bytes and the bits or whatever. But just to show that you can do that, and that really at the end of the day, it's possible to just derive these values. There's no like magic numbers that we have to like always memorize things. It's totally possible, and it's not that bad if you see it, right? You can just go back to the baseline. What is a video is a bunch of images. What is an image? It's a bunch of pixels. What is a pixel? Has 3 different values, right? And you can build it up from there. Now, I guess here's my next question for you: is if we had this number, like I guess like let's just calculate this for fun, if you don't mind doing that. 200 million divided by let's do megabytes. What does that give us approximately?
That would give us 200 megabytes
200. I think that sounds about right to me. Yeah.
by a
Something like that.
thousand, right?
Yeah.
Million,
1,000 by 1,000.
200,000 maybe. Hold on, let me.
Wait.
Yeah,
See, math is hard
might be
without doing
tripping.
it in my head. I think 200 sounds right. That seems approximately correct to me. Or maybe it's
Divided by
2,000.
1,000.
No, no, we're doing images.
200,000. Yeah, 200,000.
200,000 for an image? Really? I think our
If we're
calculations must
going
be
from
off.
200 million. Oh wait, I think I'm multiplying, not dividing. Yeah. So we're
See how
starting at
fun the math
two.
is for all of us, everyone.
Yeah,
It's great.
200 million bytes divided by. There we
There
go.
you go. 1,000 divided
Uh,
by 1,000. I actually
yeah.
don't know.
Oh yeah, it's I'm getting 200,000
200,000.
still.
So something that doesn't really sound right to me. I
Or
think
is that
we're
200 megabytes or is it 200 million bytes,
200
right?
million bytes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay. I think we messed something up here. I think 200 megabytes maybe sounds a bit more correct, although that even sounds a bit high.
Oh, is it divided by 1,000 twice? That's
Yeah.
right.
Oh, that's why. So
Okay,
so
so
two, so
yeah,
it is
yeah,
200. Okay, which is
yeah,
which is
yeah.
approximately
Sorry.
zero point 0.2 gigabytes then, right?
Right.
And it's being cut off a little bit there, but that's okay. So let me ask you this question, Gavin, and for everyone watching this as well, if you've seen kind of video sizes or image sizes, a 1080p image, 200 megabytes just for one single image, and we just mentioned that our video is going to be in frames, right? And
Right.
let's just say approximately how many frames is your average video like? Would you say?
Typically, it's around 60 frames per
60.
second,
Okay,
something like that.
let's go with that. So we'll say 60 frames per second, and each frame is 200 megabytes. And what does that give us approximately? Gives us like I think that's 1,200, right?
Yeah,
Megabytes, which is equal to 1.2 gigabytes, and that is for 1 second of video,
that's crazy. Yeah.
right? So this is
Right.
the raw, like this is the raw file, right?
Yeah.
So you can kind of see how this would get kind of crazy pretty quickly. So the reason we're going through this is also just it's a good exercise and just trying to think from first principles for this stuff. But I guess Gavin, here's my question for you. Now that we
Mm-hmm.
kind of see this, this is for 1 second, so we'd multiply this by 60 seconds
It's
to get a
60.
minute, or
Mm-hmm.
by by five of that to get 5 minutes, for example, and however many videos
Right.
you're uploading. Um, that is kind of insane. Like 1.2
Yeah.
gigabytes to view a video. I think most people run out of their data plan after watching like 1 or 2 seconds, right?
Right.
So that's obviously a non-starter. So what could we do? What are some strategies to kind of work around this? Because obviously this has been solved before.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, we'd have to do some kind of video compression.
Right.
So it. I'm not extremely familiar with what formats exist as far as like lossless or lossy like for video specifically.
Good.
But I mean, yeah, there would be some way to basically shrink down our video size so that we can send it and move it across, store it at a much smaller size. Though we might have small bits of frames that aren't perfect, or little bits of loss, I guess, in the video file, but would be much more manageable and would be hardly noticeable to most users.
Correct. Beautiful. That's a perfect answer. So to bring that back to our diagram that you drew here earlier, like where would you say, just off the top of your head, if you were to think about that, like this idea
hmm
of compression, like just you don't have to draw it out, but like just talk through it. Like where might you do that?
We would need to do that in this, probably in the server, or even on the client possibly
Okay.
whenever they go to send it to our server, just so we can. I mean, it would be a bit expensive to run on the client, but it kind of depends. The server is usually a bit of a better place. We could even have like a third party microservice, something like
Mm,
that we could use to do this for us and send it off and get it back from there
very good.
before proceeding.
Beautiful.
So I think that would probably make the most sense, is to.
Excellent. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was looking for. So that was a great answer, Gavin. So traditionally, if you think of services like even YouTube, where we're probably watching this right now, right? Like that's kind of how it would work, right? We'd send that off to the server, and then that server would kind of divvy it up, just as you said, to a bunch of other servers to slice it up into different sizes, different formats. And then maybe it does store the raw one just so it can regenerate things if needed.
Right.
But those are all being sent probably over to some kind of bucket so that those can be stored as the actual files as well as all the compressed versions. And then YouTube or whatever service, in our case our app, we can then go back in the future and take that file and then recompress it if we have a better algorithm or things like that, which is exactly also how Netflix does a lot of things. So yeah, that's a beautiful answer.
Thank you.
Honestly, I think that's good. I'm
Awesome.
really happy with that.
Cool.
We went a little bit overtime, but I think that was worth it. How do you feel?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I still feel like there's definitely, there's so much here that like to dive in on any like given layer. Is a lot of it was just trying to figure out what you were looking for
Correct.
specifically, and I think that tends to be the case with a lot of
Yes.
this style of interview.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, from what I hear, most people come in with as an interviewer with their answer for how this thing should be built, or at least like a general like what they're looking for a candidate to produce. So yeah, a lot of it is just kind of feeling it out, seeing what I guess what it is you're looking for, what areas you want me to dive into. And like I said, there's so much here as far as like jumping into the server, all the microservices we could have done. You mentioned like adding a message queue so we could, actually sending this stuff to our storage bucket. We could kind of queue that up so we don't have to worry about something going down. We could have a, there's a lot. So yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it though.
Wonderful. And I'll just give you some feedback, and as well just to those for listening, just kind of how things went in general from the perspective of like doing the interview. Um, so I think right off the bat, you did a fantastic job, right? I think this part right here, to be completely honest, was really well done, right? You immediately started thinking of what are some things that are like technical requirements, and then what are things that like we just kind of nice to have and we want to do. Obviously, we didn't get too many of these,
Right.
but it really depends on the kind of question you're being asked. But the fact that you thought about it is really really awesome. You also kind of went through a lot of really really nice questions, and that's really the most important part of the system design interview. I told you this, and when we've talked about it
Yeah.
previously too, Gavin, is like just the questions. Honestly, I can't stress enough. Imagine if you didn't ask some of these questions, like you didn't ask this one or you didn't ask this
Right.
one, right? Imagine if I said, hey, I just wanted to build this service for uh, my apartment condo community or something. That would be kind of weird,
Right.
but let's just say it like that. I just want to do
Yeah.
that. Just want to do that for some reason, right? It would be a totally different system design than it would be if it's like a global user base or just
Yeah.
a Canadian or an American user base. So the questions you asked were great. You really tried to hammer down the what I was thinking. You basically extracted from my brain my idea of this app, which is really the point of
Right.
a system design interview, and the communication was really strong there. So really nice
Thank
work
you.
on that. Also, you didn't assume anything, and I loved that. That was really well done. Like these questions up here. What sometimes would have been a mistake is like if you're like, oh, I need to build the auth, I need to build the matching algorithm, I need to build all this stuff. Let me just jump into building the database tables for all that stuff. You can imagine we
Right.
would have gone a totally different direction if that was the
Yeah.
case. We could have done an entire interview on just
It'd been
maybe
about to say,
authentication, right? Yeah.
yeah, spent the whole
And
time on schemas, like just
exactly.
yeah.
And we wouldn't have been able to zoom out and think of the app at a higher level and really talk about all these other features, right? So it's really important to not assume things, which you did a really good job of, and
Thank you.
ask as many questions as you can and spend 10, 15, 20 minutes going through just this part before even drawing a single line on that whiteboard or on that software,
Right.
right? So if I go back to the drawing that you made here, I think you did a really great job with this. I think this cleared it up. I was I think initially a bit confused as to what you were going to do with this, and then it cleared it up at
Right.
the end by actually adding all the tables in there. So that was really nice to
Yeah.
see. Um, I think that it's very tempting to start with the database because everyone
Yeah.
is terrified of the database, and there's
Yeah.
many different places you can start. I think it always is nice to kind of zoom out and try to think of like, well, I have users, and the user is going to talk to our service, and kind of like the service then needs to talk to something else, and then that's going to talk
Yeah.
to a database eventually or some bucket or whatever it is like you have here, right?
Yeah.
And it depends on kind of what your thought processes and your flow of thinking is to get that design out, but you got it down at the end of the day, and I was following along perfectly, and that was really
Cool.
nice. So good job on that. I think that You didn't go too deep into any of these, which was really, really awesome. Just like I mentioned with the previous, the notes that you wrote. You
Yeah.
could have, yeah, you could have just gone full ham on a load balancer and just been like, oh, we need, it has to be Nginx and we have to set up this thing and this header
Right.
and it
Right.
has to do this and what if it's this type of client and blah 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 blah, right? And then we need the load balancer for the load balancer and then that needs a load balancer for itself, right? So you could have
Yeah.
just spent the entire time talking about that too, and that would have detracted from kind of the overall system design. So you did a good job of zooming out when needed as well. So that was really
Thank you.
nice. Good work.
Thank you.
So yeah, I guess before we wrap up this video, Gavin, is there just any last minute questions or comments that you had?
Uh, Not necessarily that I can think of, other than like it was definitely a lot more enjoyable than I expected. I was expecting to have to like really sweat on some of this math stuff. So I was glad it didn't get super hardcore there. But yeah, other than that, I thought it went, it felt pretty good. It felt like it went well. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it went really well. You did a really good job. I think, and one thing to note as well, just for everyone watching as well as for you, Gavin, is like normally you would see this type of style of interview for maybe like a software engineering position, especially like the FANG style or like wannabe FANG style companies.
Right.
You probably wouldn't see this in like, a junior intern, like web developer position. However, even if you watch this video up to this point or you practice this like you've been doing, Gavin, this is so important to even just bring up that you know this, and it'll help you even just build your actual code and explain code to
Right.
other people in so many different ways, right? So I encourage highly everyone to take a look at that. And Gavin, if you want to share the resources, I can put them in the description from what you look through
Yeah.
if you like. But yeah, you did a really great job overall, and I think that now that you've done this at least once, and if you've watched this
Yeah.
and at least once, you probably have a better understanding of what to expect when it actually happens. All right.
No, it definitely makes sense. Yeah, because it's a lot of it was just the nerves of never having done it before, like outside of just reading, what Interview IO had to say and watching a couple examples. But it's always different when you're in the seat.
It's not that bad, right? Now I bet if you were to
No,
go up
yeah.
there with a
Oh, yeah.
whiteboard and marker, I'm sure you'd have a pretty good go at it.
Yeah. No, definitely.
All right. So I hope you enjoyed that video, everyone. We would both love it if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let us know in the comments what you think of kind of Gavin's performance in this interview in general. If there's anything that you'd want to do differently, or if you had any questions, I'm sure Gavin could also pop into the comments and start answering
Yeah.
there as well. Probably you can join the Discord as well, and the link is in the description, and you can harass Gavin and ream him out on anything that you liked or didn't like in the video.
Please roast me.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, great job, Gavin, and thanks everyone for
Thank you.
watching. Until our next video together. All right, see you later.